my countdown go? Guess we'll just have to do it ourselves. All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. It is Wednesday, and that means it's Ted Treks here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mader, and we're coming at you this week for our mission to watch every original series episode in order, and we're covering the Enterprise incident from 1968, a season 3 episode, either episode 4 or episode 2, depending on what order you go by. I always love saying that. Let's bring in the namesake of our Ted Trek Wednesdays, my dad, and Jeff's, who is also with us today. Ted, how you doing today, Dad?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
You ready to talk about the Enterprise incident?
Yes, it's a classic.
The Vulcan death grip.
The Vulcan death grip, the Romulans, the Vulcans.
A lot of fun. A lot of fun things to break down in here. Absent for about 7 weeks, but somehow here this week we have Jeff Mader. How you doing, Jeff?
I'll kill you. He's not sane.
You traitor. You damn bloody traitor. Also,
I'm back.
You're back. You know what? Are the Leafs not doing as well? What's going on with the Leafs?
They're not playing. They're not playing tonight.
Oh, they're not playing tonight.
I was going to watch the Capitals Rangers, but it's probably going to be blacked out. So
it's boring. When you got the Enterprise incident. Also, let's bring in next esteemed panelist Adam Woodward.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Coming to us from Markham,
Ontario.
Yes. And joining us for the second time in 3 weeks, we got Kevin Millard.
Hello, Dave. Hello, everyone.
Kevin.
One half of the tag team couple.
Yes, we were hoping to get both members of the tag team couple, but she's sadly working, so she couldn't be here. Although she's one of the biggest fans of the original series, so we need to get her in here at some point. Big Brother Canada ends this week, so that means that we can go back to 8 o'clock or a little bit later for this podcast after this week, which I'm sure that will make Adam happy.
It will make me happy.
Yes. So let's talk about this episode. Maybe I'll take Dad down for a second, and we'll just we'll jump into this. The Enterprise incident. So this is a classic. This is a season 3 episode, and that's the season we've watched the least amount of. We got Romulans. We got Romulans flying Klingon ships. We got cloaking devices. We got a female commander. We got Kirk, who seems to be out of his mind. We got Spock, seemingly a traitor. We got Scotty, who doesn't even know what's going on. McCoy's surly. Chapel's clueless. What else is there to talk about? So let's go over to Dad first. Dad, what are you thinking about the Enterprise incident? You alluded at it, but overall,
it's a pretty good episode, Dave. It's pretty hard to beat this one. But the best part about this episode, in my opinion, is that music they use.
The music? Which music?
In between, every time they show the ships, it's like that music of suspense and of, in between every time they went even to a break, it came back,
Yeah. If you look at early on they get surrounded here by these Romulan ships, which look, well, at least in this remastered version, 2 of the 3 of them look like Klingon D7 battle cruisers. They put a Romulan ship in this version, but back in the 1960s, back in 1968 when this aired originally, it looked. Let's see if I can find it here. It looked a little bit more like this. With just 3 Klingon ships, and I believe that we'll get to this in fun facts, but I believe that it was just that they didn't.
4, Dave.
Well, no, the one on the far right is just part of the background that I've already put in. So, yeah, I know, but these are because I guess they didn't have the original Romulan ship, or they couldn't make 3 Romulan ships, or there was some kind of real world reason they had to do this, and so. It falls here, but I do like the inclusion in the remastered version where we get like this other Romulan bird of prey marked in. They also threw in like the Romulan markings on the ships, but I digress.
I like that they actually mentioned this in the episode instead of just doing it and not saying anything like they used to do a lot in the 60s. He actually mentions it. He's like, yeah, they're using Klingon designs now.
Yeah, intelligence tells us that Romulans are now using Klingon designs, which I think is interesting because it implies a relationship between the Romulans and the Klingons. On some level, although in the original series we never see them crossing over, but that it's sort of setting up a mythology here that will be carried through the rest of Star Trek. Let's go over to Adam. Adam, I don't know. I think last week you were disparaging the great name of DC Fontana, and this is another one of her scripts. Are you here to bash this one too?
No, great episode. She completely redeemed herself in this one. And for being a season 3, I thought this episode was just great. I really quite liked it last night when I watched it. All of it. So I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, me too. Jeff, let's bring you next. Jeff, the Enterprise incident. Any initial thoughts before we kind of deep dive?
Yeah, it's kind of like the old story of when you drive into territory that's not your territory, and then all of a sudden you're surrounded. What do? That's kind of that's kind of the premise of the episode, and I think that leads to a lot of different things they could do, and they did do in this episode, especially with the Romulan Vulcan aspect, which I think they dig in pretty heavy.
Right. This is only our second time we're seeing the Romulans in the original series. I think we only get the 2 times, including the first incident, which is the Balance of Terror, which featured Mark Leonard playing the Romulan commander. So they're back here, and they're a little less mysterious this time, or maybe a little bit more mysterious. And just this episode starts off with McCoy's log, which is a little bit unusual. Medical log. Captain's acting weird. He's not himself. He's a little bit irritable. We've been on patrol for too long. Who's to say why? And then Kirk comes to the bridge. I wrote Kirk is a dick in my notes, and that's he was like, how do I intentionally be a dick and get everyone to realize I'm not?
Yes, Chekhov, I can read. Here's our stupid pad back.
You know how to do your job, Chekhov? Or what do I have to do to get current information around here?
Yep.
Yeah. And then he's like, on a whim, he's like, let's go into the neutral zone. Right?
Yeah, he's like, Spock, you on board? He's like, all right.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to go into the neutral zone. He's like, hey, those are my orders. And then he says, keep going into Romulan space. Scotty comes to the bridge.
That was awesome. Yeah.
When did we get an order to go into the neutral zone? He's saying, to Uhura. He's like, yep. Did we get an order?
So then there's that private conversation with Uhura and him talking behind Kirk, right? And Kirk looks at them over his shoulder. He says, just like, he's pissed off. He's pissed off.
Questioning Kirk's orders right in front of him on the bridge. To the bridge to do that.
Yeah.
He goes right to the communications officer. He's like, what's going on? Like, I don't trust what's going on with Kirk. But McCoy was just doing a voiceover about how he's concerned about him. So, you already are on Scotty's side. They already set that up for you. And that's a good way to.
Scotty is third in command of the ship. And so he could go more directly to the captain, but he's too afraid to.
Yeah, because of what's going on here, I think. He
doesn't 5 feet away from him.
Yeah, because of what McCoy sets up, I think, right at the beginning.
Yeah, and so they're quickly surrounded, and
I think that just we can talk about Scotty in his hair. I don't know if you guys noticed, but that pushback haircut that he's got in this episode. I don't know if it's the whole 3rd season.
Do I have
Yeah, it's kind of like it is. It's pulled back and it's slicked back.
Slicked back.
Yeah,
right?
slicked back.
Good old Grecian formula going.
I got a little bit of a picture here.
That's the most extreme, but yeah.
I'd say it's more Vitalis.
He's got some shoe polish in his hair or something. Something's making that stick.
Yeah, that was something. And then just like, okay, they're quickly surrounded. We go to credits. I am skipping ahead here, but like, was this a good plan? I guess it paid off. It worked. So I guess it was a good plan, but a pretty risky move that like, we're just going to fly our ship into Romulan space and then we're going to trick them into stealing their cloaking device. And then we're going to get out of there. That's
our flagship we're sending in.
Yeah. And I think they got picked for this mission because Spock was the first officer and they thought that maybe they could work the Romulan Vulcan angle perhaps or something. or that they were that the Romulans knew of Spock, because the commander even says so. We keep track of a few officers, a few of these Vulcans, right?
Yeah.
And when we come back, in terms of like we're surrounded, we meet first. We don't meet the commander though. We meet this guy. Wait, I gotta take that down. We meet this guy, Sub Commander Tall.
Yep.
Right.
I don't like this guy. He's
no.
His performance is pretty wooden. It's
yeah. He's not charismatic enough for me for a Romulan. I think they were trying to make the point too much that the Vulcans and the Romulans are very similar, but any modern Romulan villain is like Nero, or like they always have a kind of like a more of a personality.
They're usually more passionate. Yeah. Like they're more personality is a good way of saying it. This guy is maybe the.
Don't you think they might have done that on purpose? Because when they brought forward the commander, I mean,
who has no name, she's just called the commander.
But she is the passionate one. She's definitely, I think that there was a very good contrast between the two of them.
She's the hot-blooded Romulan,
but only Spock knows it.
Yeah, only Spock. Oh, quite rare and quite beautiful.
It's quite rare.
Yeah. So, but the other interesting thing about, sorry, I'm just let me take that down for a sec. The interesting thing to me about Sub Commander Tall, and even that Romulan bridge compared to the bridge we had in the Enterprise, what was it called? The Balance of Terror. The first time we had the Romulans in there, was that the Romulan ship, he's like behind a desk. He's like, I'm a commander, and as opposed to like Captain Kirk's chair where he sits in a chair. Right, like I'm behind a desk and I give official commencements, like I'm the president behind the desk in the Oval Office. It's kind of how sometimes it feels. Did that stick out to any of you?
Yes, the fact that he's sitting behind it, he's the only. Like, are they on a ship or are they in an office? Where are they?
Different design.
It's the first time that there's a desk.
I'll tell you, there's going to be one thing in the background. It's going to be some sort of metal gradient fence. There will always be
always
behind them. Yes,
the same as the Enterprise engine room. They just reused it.
Yeah.
Season
3. Season 3.
Baseball? If he's got a desk, you got to have a baseball.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's
Jody also wants us to know that the commander is hot.
Okay, I didn't know you felt that way about Romulans, Jody.
Yeah, he's into Romulans. That's what he
wants.
Interracial
us to know. Marriage.
Yes.
I feel like the summary for this episode, though, on Netflix should have been Kirk crosses the neutral zone so Spock can finger a Romulan,
and Kirk can pretend to be a Romulan.
That's the byline. That's the summary.
Yeah. They had to get the cloaking device.
To get the cloaking device.
Yeah.
Dad, did you?
They didn't go on
that was the subplot.
Dad, did you find it interesting that it was going to take 3 weeks for a communication to get back to Starfleet and to the headquarters?
Yeah, I thought that was a bit long. I thought they would be quicker than that.
They just crossed into this side of the border, but it seems like they're very far away.
Speed of sound isn't as fast as the speed of light.
Right. There's also this whole scene we had in the briefing room, right, where we like, it's basically like Kirk's like, what do we do? We could either fight and lose, we can blow up the ship, or we can try to do something else. And then Spock's like, we wouldn't even need opinions if you hadn't flown us into this situation in the first place, right? If you weren't such a bad captain.
Yeah, but you got to remember that Spock was playing along there. He knew all along what was going on.
Spock's playing, but he's playing up to the other officers. So because they need to.
Yeah, but he has to make it look like he didn't know what's going on either.
Does McCoy know what's going on?
No.
Right. So
McCoy knew was Spock and Kirk.
Right. And they give longing, like kind of like Spock's very stoic. This whole episode, Spock is very robotic, right? Like he's almost like a Data in this episode.
Well, he's trying to be more Vulcan, I think.
Yeah. He is,
right?
And he's acting. They're acting out in front of the crew as well as acting for the show for Star Trek. So they're double acting.
Right, but then once the ruse is sort of broken, it doesn't seem to matter anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Once Kirk comes back to life.
You're true. You're right. You're right, Dad. The actor. There's nothing actors like more than an actor pretending to be a character that has to act, to be someone else within the story too. Like it's like they love that. It's like because then it becomes like triple layered.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's my other question about this scene here in the conference room. Who are these other guys who are here for this meeting? Let's just go bring them in here quickly to show them. Let's maybe take Adam down for a second and just put that up. We have a red shirt guy here. He's a command. He's wearing commander stripes.
Yeah.
We got to go, which means he outranks Scotty.
That's
but
Lieutenant Leslie and Lieutenant Lemley.
That is not Lieutenant Leslie.
Yeah.
This?
Lieutenant
I don't think
Leslie.
so. Isn't Leslie a white guy?
Yeah, Leslie's a white guy.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, and then this guy, this gold shirt in the back, he's wearing Lieutenant Commander stripes. You don't see it here, but you
don't often see an Indian guy like in Star Trek. In Star Trek, that's one thing. Like Star Trek definitely did. They really had great representation of the future. That it was going to be a everybody contributed type idea.
He's the night shift guy. Okay.
That's Eddie Paskey. Eddie Paskey played him.
That guy?
Yeah.
All right. I'm glad you're up on this casting stuff more than I am. Anyway, so like because of the stripes, because of the rank, they stand out to me like sore thumbs, right? Because I don't know, like they're pretty high up. Anyway, so Spock's, yes, they're playing it up. They got to play it up for McCoy, and I guess because McCoy needs plausible deniability because he's going to be part of this whole like we need to fake Kirk's death on the Romulan ship. That's part of the plan that they're working towards. And like McCoy says later, it's a good thing they didn't start an autopsy on you when we were trying to like fake your death because that could have been a problem. But they get this invitation from Sub Commander Tall. He's like, come over. We'll beam two guys. We'll beam two of our guys to you at the same time. And then you'll come over here and then we can have a little bit of a conversation because they know the Romulans want to capture the Enterprise, right? They want to keep it intact, take it back, study it, learn all its military secrets because there's a bit of a Cold War between these two powers, right? And so I thought that was interesting. Like the Romulans are an interesting group compared to like the Klingons who are just way more, well, they're gonna kill you. And how DC Fontana writes them. And then they come over.
This guy appeared in a ton of episodes of Star Trek. I'm surprised you guys don't know who he is.
The red shirt with the commander stripes?
Well, Lieutenant Mr. Leslie and Lieutenant Leslie. He appeared in more episodes.
He's a security guard. Mr. Leslie is a security guard. Not that guy we showed. There's right? Roger Lemel. He's a security guard. We saw they were guarding the Romulan commander when she came to the bridge.
Oh, okay, then that's who he is. Okay.
Yeah, but they weren't.
I don't know who those other two guys are.
No, they're extras, but they don't actually have names. But
wait, Leslie was in more episodes than Sulu?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, he just doesn't talk.
Wow. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the list of episodes he's been in, and it's staggering. It's staggering.
Right. It's also interesting that they actually I think they ask for Spock to come because they know even when Tall's first talking to Kirk, he's like, who's that behind you? Who's that handsome Vulcan behind you, Kirk? Right? And he's like, oh, this is my first officer, Mr. Spock, Mr. Vulcan. He's like, oh, because you can see that the Romulans are very curious about the Vulcans, right? They have this longing to speak to the Vulcans. This becomes integral effectively to the Spock character, right? Like this episode and even the first introduction of the Romulans, where Spock's having to deal with all that other officer who hates his guts because his grandfather fought in the Romulan War and he's not taking any of this guff or whatever it is, right? Yeah, Sulu was doing the Green Berets. Come on, Kevin. That's why
this guy was over 60 episodes.
Yeah, Leslie.
Wow.
Yeah. Sulu's in and out of things.
He wasn't always a lieutenant. He was Mr. Leslie in the early seasons.
Yeah. Right.
And he was a crewman in other episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this whole thing with the Romulans and the Vulcans, Dad, like, do you give much what like, how do you think about them? I guess
kind of related, like past cousins or something. Yeah, I would say.
Right, they were kind of like they're two divergent groups from the same tribe, effectively.
I kind of look at it like it's almost a metaphor for like, Spain would be the motherland, and then like other countries developed
like
in
Mexico.
South America, like Mexico or whatever, Chile or whatever, and they have different cultures, different customs because they settled into a different place.
Right. And like Adam, when rewatching this episode, do you find like when you think about like where Spock will end up in terms of Romulan Vulcan reunification, all of that, even some of the lines tonight where the commander, the woman commander, she says to Spock, like, it's not all about the Federation, like it's not the entire universe, right?
A couple things in this episode for me were really, I mean, it's pretty remarkable that how well this laid the groundwork for the future, and how well they carried it, right? And I think you nailed it, because that the reunification episodes, which were carried into like Discovery, which we just saw back in the fall, were great episodes, and that whole relationship with Spock that we saw in Next Generation, and them, I think that storyline was fantastic. And if this is the basis for that, which is kind of is, because you're right. Again, I wanted to talk about that line too. It's not all about the Federation, and the logic in Spock would see that. And I think that he the curiosity and the passion that she felt for him clearly in this episode intrigued him, and he probably continued that for the years and years following to get him to where the reunification happened.
It basically becomes his life's work, right?
Right. And then the other part, I mean, Jody said it here in a second comment, is it started the tradition of the Romulans having strong female characters. I mean, Next Gen had some fantastic commanders on their ships, and spies and whatnot. It was I think that the Romulans, I think, were the most interesting foes of the Federation for the whole time, in my opinion.
Yeah, and yet they never made a movie really with the Romulans, with the Kirk era.
Not until the reboot, not until the Chris Pine Kirk.
Right. Yeah. Not until the Chris Pine Kirk. Yeah. They never really did a movie, which they did a lot with the Klingons.
Yeah. I mean, clearly the Klingons, like in like the 80s when they were making like the original series movies with Shatner and the gang, like I just feel like they threw a couple Romulan references into a few of those movies. There's that Romulan ambassador in Star Trek 6, but generally they're not seen as much there.
But even the Chris Pine Romulan relationship wasn't great. I didn't love that part of that movie, because it wasn't. They even said it. We're not Romulans. We're not speaking for Romulus, and so it was more. It could have been.
We don't speak for the Empire.
Yeah.
We stand alone.
But the Romulans were never as bad as the Klingons, though. The Romulans were like bad. They were like an evil foe, but they weren't as evil. They were.
Oh, I think they were worse.
I didn't think so.
No, they were more calculating and diabolical. The Klingons are just like, let's beat them up and shoot them down. It was much more. The
Klingons were a little more gruff, and these guys were more cunning.
Well, let me ask you this, Kevin Millard, because you join us a lot on Deep Space Nine at 9ish. Do you find the Romulans here in the original series are a lot like the Cardassians in Deep Space Nine?
Yes, they're like Ted said. They're more cunning. It's more political and warlike, kind of like the Cardassians in Deep Space Nine. And the only series to really start to really, I think, try to explore Romulans as the bad guy has been Picard, and I didn't like it.
Well, TNG did quite a bit of it too, right? Like,
some.
Like Commander Tomalak.
Commander Tomalak.
Yeah.
From Babylon 5.
And what was the episode that well, not to digress, but where Troy was on one of their ships as a imposter.
Oh, right. She was surgically altered to look like a Romulan.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. It's a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Right. I also want to talk about this Romulan female commander on that point, because we meet her pretty much after they beam over. I thought it was interesting that she has a like a 60s mini skirt for her version as well. So kind of showing that there was a particular aesthetic during the 2260s in the Star Trek universe across all channels.
The same as the 1960s.
But is this the first woman in command of a starship of any kind in Star Trek?
So.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
They weren't too kind to women yes.
Right. And her portrayal, like I think she's strong. It depends if you want to consider her this to be any kind of weakness in terms of how she's written, because she's shown to be very like infatuated with Spock, and that's sort of her undoing in terms of carrying out her mission and duty.
So did you guys notice that when Kirk and Spock were beamed into her quarters or walked into her quarters, she's sitting in the chair, lounging back. You get a shot of her head and you go, oh, that's a woman. But Kirk, his eyes just like, light up.
Yeah. He's so happy.
And Spock, if you see Spock, he looks very skeptical. Like he's like, oh God.
It's like, I'm going to have to put up with this. He already knows what's coming.
Yeah. Dad, what did you think of her, the Romulan commander?
I thought she played a good role. She was a little naive in that she kind of fell for her plan, but it's the show. It's the way it's written.
Did you find her like a worthy adversary to Kirk?
No, I don't think so. I think she was okay, but no, she was a rookie. She got beaten by
seasoned pros.
She got beaten by the combined ingenuity of Spock and Kirk.
Guys, they've been putting season episode after episode in. That this is season 3 for them. That this is a female Romulan captain that's infatuated with Spock. That's child's play for Kirk and Spock. They're gonna run rampant over this.
Yeah,
that's kind of what this episode is. I kind of agree that it is those two kind of like combining to be like, let's infiltrate, let's steal their cloak, and we're better than these people. They're not as experienced as us. I think
that's the one hole in this episode, is that how easily she fell for him, and I guess trusted him so quickly.
Way too quickly. But he plays this part well. He's like, my commander sucks. He like flew us in here, and he's clearly he's deranged. Also, so let's talk about the romance between these two, and whether it's how do they have chemistry? Is this believable? I guess is maybe my main question here between these two. Like, is it believable that Spock could kind of convince her that he's willing to betray the Federation, fly this Enterprise in, join maybe the Romulans, and get out of the Federation? And
I think they're trying to make you think that, because she's already trying to see the good in him, because she wants to know more about him, because he's a Vulcan, and kind of the Romulan. They're really setting up this whole idea that the Romulans are longing to understand their identity and who they are, and the Vulcans have a very strict sense of order and life, and the Romulans do not. So I think they're kind of infatuated with that.
Both sides are. Even Spock's infatuated with learning more about the Romulans too, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And he's kind of like treating it like a science experiment the whole episode.
And was that blue drink they were drinking Romulan ale?
I would think so.
I would imagine,
yeah. That was Romulan ale. It's illegal in the Federation, Dad.
Yes, I know. Spock was guzzling it down.
But it's not all about the Federation, Dave.
Right. So she's not buying, but Kirk's like saying, well, we had car trouble and we ended up here by accident. Sorry, took a wrong turn. at the Milky Way, and so she's like, I'm not buying it. I don't believe you. And then she's like, I heard Vulcans don't lie. And he's like, yep. But then he lets it slip. But I won't. I have duty or the truth. And she uses that to kind of point out the fact that Kirk's full of it. And this is where their romance begins. Kirk is also thrown in the brig, the security room, as she calls it. I love when he goes, we've been through this, Commander. She goes like, we have not even begun.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Cisco. I have not only begun. Wait, yeah. Don't you have that sound clip, Dave?
Oh, I do. Where is it?
Dave, I want the sound of the music.
I don't have that music.
You're gonna get Cisco. You're gonna get Cisco instead. And
are you finished? Keep talking.
Well, Cisco's about to drop a heavy beat down, which is like it is in this episode where Deep Space Nine that we talk about so often on Deep Space Nine and Nine-ish, that the original series is really. They really drew inspiration more so than TNG and even Voyager. Deep Space Nine really saw what the original series brought, I think, in certain aspects and kind of embraced those things. And overacting was definitely one of those things. And Avery Brooks is one of those guys that saw what Shatner did and he was like, well, this is amazing. I can do this too. And
I'll be the Gary Indiana version of Kirk.
Are you finished?
I haven't even begun.
There it is. There's that soundbite. Okay, Dave. Back to you.
I don't have the music, Dad.
Why can't you pull it up?
Well,
copyright.
It's just gonna take me time to find it, and
it's at the start of every segment when it shows the 3 or 4 ships out there.
Okay, I'll find it for you, Jeff. Keep going.
Well, I mean, Adam. We'll send it over to Adam. Adam, what do you think about this episode from the perspective of like what Dave was saying earlier, the Vulcans studying the Romulans? How do you think Spock viewed the Romulans?
Well, I think that in the past, I don't think they know too much about them. They know there was a split. They know that they separated, but eons have passed since that. So, and then, as far as I understand, the Romulans have, remained pretty hidden. So it wasn't until, I guess in this series, in their lifetimes, that they've sort of started appearing again. And even in Next Gen, remember they went away for a couple 100 years and then, look, the Romulans are, so it's always, they're going away and fixing some internal problems and then coming back. But so I think like other Vulcans, probably Spock is very curious about them and what makes them different than Vulcans and why did they split? And he's a scholar and he wants to find out the history and why would such a, why would anybody split? You look back on civil wars and you think what brings people who are so close and takes them apart. So I think Spock follows that path.
No, I agree. I think for sure that the Vulcans are looking at them. Maybe Spock more so than other Vulcans. I think some other Vulcans would look down on the Romulans, that they're not embracing the logic and that whole mentality of life that the Vulcans have. Spock looks at it more from, I think, a Starfleet officer's point of view first, and then a Vulcan.
And maybe also the point that he's not pure Vulcan. He's got emotion too.
Yeah, he's half human.
Jody thinks that the Romulan commander is Spock's version of Khan or his nemesis. I don't know. I think it's more like his love interest. Here's that music, Dad.
That's it.
Great.
If you counted how many times that played in this episode, it probably played like 8 times, 10 times.
I'll make sure to include it if we ever do a radio theater of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got to put that in. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's fully there. Okay, so I also thought it was interesting after Kirk gets thrown into the brig, and she calls over to the Enterprise. She's like, It's okay, Enterprise. You don't need to worry. We know you weren't responsible for your captain. So guess what? We're gonna take your ship back to the Romulan port, and you'll all be processed, and you'll be let go. No worries." And Scotty's not having any of it. He's just sitting there listening, stone faced, and he's like, He's like, "Yeah, not gonna happen. This is the Romulan. This is Scott," and he's like, "You can go to hell."
Orders from Captain Kirk.
Yeah, we take our orders from Captain Kirk and nothing else, and you can blow us to bits.
Yeah.
And
we're not gonna do it. We're not doing anything until he comes back and sits in this chair.
And then Kirk smiles. You get a little smirk.
Yeah. A little smirk.
But we've missed one of the best Scotty moments in this episode. It's when they beam over and the two Romulans beam over to the Enterprise. They pull out their disruptors and he just gives them a stern look. Like, that's it.
He's like, "Do you know where you are? Do you know where you are?" Yeah.
Scotty is cool. He's a cool guy. That was like the only redeeming part of last week's episode. Was Scotty, and then again he shows it again today.
Scotty would have made a great captain. He would have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like he's a natural, and it makes sense that he's the third in command.
For all the times that Spock and Kirk go down to the planet or wherever, or go off the ship, he's almost a captain, probably more time than the captain is.
What Spock?
What do you think about the question? What do you think about the question that the female Romulan commander poses to Vulcan? That do you consider yourself Terran or Vulcan? And he answers Vulcan. So he almost does he not consider himself human, or like what's going on there?
He chose the Vulcan way of life, so he kind of rejects his humanity in some ways.
Until much later in his life.
Or if you want to look at the earlier version of Spock as played by Ethan Peck, where he's singing with friggin' Rebecca Romaine in a short in the turbo lift or whatever.
No.
No, I don't want to look at that.
No. I choose not.
Yeah, I wouldn't seek it out.
No, thank you.
Only 7 minutes. You can do it.
It's hard. It's a hard 7 minutes. And my issue, like I've talked about this before in the podcast, my issue with it is that it's not consistent with the Spock character. It's just like, it's not who we know in this series. And like retconning
you gotta remember, he was acting out something that they didn't really know how he was. So look at it that way.
He might not have been being honest. Yes, that makes a good point. When he was answering Terran or Vulcan, he might not have been honest about the Vulcan.
I don't think he would lie about anything he didn't need to. So, like, it just
he was acting out a position. Right?
That he's playing a part. You're saying,
yeah, playing a role.
But she was very seductive, though. I mean, her role. I agree. I mean, she was attractive. I agree with Jody. I mean. But the role, I mean, the quote where she goes, Romulan women are not like Vulcan females. We're not dedicated to pure logic and the sterility of non-emotion. I mean, that line in itself is like oozing, let's have sex. So,
yeah, DC Fontana. Those would be her common lines.
But the best part of that whole thing was how Scotty managed to get that cloaking device hooked up perfectly in 15 minutes or so.
Well, he took him a couple tries, but
he needed more time.
Yeah. Right. And so this is where she makes her first pitch to him. Yeah, all these lines. Then because Kirk intentionally throws himself into the force field in the brig, just to hurt himself. I think this was also part of his plan. And
get McCoy over.
McCoy, I don't make house calls. He says,
"Doctor, not a maid."
Doesn't make sense.
Also, what's wrong with the Romulan doctors? They can't look at him? I mean, I guess they don't know human physiology that well, but still, he just hit a force field. It couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, Jody and I agree.
Maybe Romulan force fields are stronger, maybe. Anyway, he threw himself fully into it, but they're like, "Hey, it's no," but Uhura's like, "It's Captain Kirk." Talk to McCoy. He's like, "Well, in that case, I better go." So he beams over. Spock is flirting some more, but then they both come in. This is where, she takes him for a walk. They kind of look at the corridor where the cloaking device is, and he kind of figures that out. He's starting to gather as much information. When they meet up with Kirk and McCoy in the brig, he's like, "Yeah, he's stressed out, mentally unfit." Now, is McCoy in on the plot at this point? Has somehow? No, not even this point.
Well, I don't know how McCoy would have known that if he wasn't in on, how would he have known about the Vulcan death grip and that Kirk wasn't really dead? So I don't know who would have told him.
Well, my question too is that is Kirk, would McCoy have certified him as mentally unfit and stressed out if that wasn't actually true?
I don't know.
Well, unless he played the part so well that he fooled McCoy.
He fooled the tricorder and everything.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't get the impression that McCoy knew until he came back to the ship.
How did he find out that, I wonder?
Well, okay, at some point he does. He is brought up to speed, because by the time they get back to the Enterprise with Kirk's corpse, he knows. He
does say, and I don't remember. He says how he knows, and I don't remember how, but he said that it happened. That something happened on the Romulan ship that tipped him off that something wasn't right.
McCoy says, "Well, now that you know, you might as well assist me." He says Spock gave him a nerve pinch to simulate death. Whatever. So I don't know. What McCoy knows and at what point is kind of the cloudiest thing in this for me.
Yes.
But
yeah.
Because he eventually is in on it. But anyway,
was it Nurse Chapel who found him alive?
Well, no, but McCoy already knew.
And but Chapel is just like all relieved. You mean, Captain Kirk's not dead and
not crazy and didn't fly us into the neutral zone?
And Spock's not a traitor. She's all happy.
Jody says McCoy was only in when the body, Jody knows. He's got all the answers on this. He knows.
See, I agree with Jody. There it is. Yes.
Because it had to fool the Romulan doctors too.
Right.
That was the other thing too.
That's right. I think that's what he says. He didn't know until he got the body back.
Right. Okay. Maybe that's
what something wasn't right. Yeah. He knew something wasn't
right. The Vulcan death grip is the other thing I just want to touch upon, because Dad, I remember you telling me about the Vulcan death grip from a very young age. It was legendary among the among the Star Trek. It's one of those things, because it turns out to be not a real thing. The Romulans don't know about this despite their common heritage. Another plot hole. He goes, because Chapel says there is no such thing as a Romulan death grip, or a Vulcan death grip. She goes, the Romulans don't know that. Why don't the Romulans know that?
There's a lot the Romulans don't know about Vulcans. That's why they're curious.
Okay.
They wouldn't be curious if they knew everything.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I guess not. The Vulcans don't have a lot of the same abilities that the Vulcans do. See, I never seen a Romulan do a mind meld. I've never seen a Romulan do a nerve pinch. I've never seen a. I
don't know about the nerve pinch, but I mean the mind meld to me is the whole logic and discipline thing that you can connect. I don't, because every time they connect with somebody with emotions, it seems to wreck somebody. They're always crying and they can't handle it as well. So.
Right. Yeah. It's exactly.
And the Romulans seem more interested in technology to probe minds rather than discipline, right? Sure. Because they're pretty devious that way too. They are always the ones that have the mind probes or stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. They're a little bit more. They use force more than they use brawn over brains, perhaps.
Yes.
Compared to the Vulcans. So Chapel finds out there's this whole relief. Kirk's not dead, whatever. Jeff, did you notice that the green stasis field that Kirk was in was similar to the green stasis field that Vedic Brile was in last night's episode.
That's
of
why.
Deep Space Nine.
That's why I had to come back, Dave, for this episode. Was the green stasis field from last night? I said, you know what? This calls for you. You mentioned it. You said this is coming up. I said, you know what? I got to be there.
I didn't mention it, and I didn't know there was going to be the connection until I watched it. But yes.
No, what was it? It was Jaemeel. It was Jaemeel.
Oh, Jaemeel.
What's a stasis field? Just fill me in.
Well, it's sort of like putting somebody in like a drawer, like at the morgue, right? Like
Oh, okay. That bed he was lying on.
Yeah, because there was like this green, like it's in theory it's like an energy field that's preventing like decay or whatever.
Okay, got it. Okay.
It's really just a green light.
It's just a green light, though, in real life. Anyway, so after this scene, Scotty gets a call from McCoy. Scotty's on the bridge, and McCoy's like, "Hey, can you come down to sickbay?" He's like, "I can't come. We're surrounded by enemy vessels." I'm trying to do my best Scotty here, right? He's like, "Well, it's urgent." He's like, "I don't know what could be more urgent than being surrounded by Romulan ships in the neutral zone." He's like, "Well, guess what? There is." He's like. And he's like,
Scotty's like, all right.
I guess. Like, I guess I better do it. It turns out to be worthwhile as we get this great scene with Scotty where he sees that Kirk is not only alive but is surgically altered to look like a Romulan. And Scotty, he's so great in this scene where he's just like, "You look like the devil himself."
What's Roxana Troy doing there?
She's just admiring.
How
She's
does she
just happy to be in on it.
top build? This woman,
She's always there. Deep Space
Well,
Nine,
it's controversial.
TNG.
He had to be there. That makes sense.
Yeah.
She's the nurse working.
No, I get why she's there. I'm not.
well, we know why she's there.
Yeah, she likes Vulcans, and now there's another one.
And Gene Roddenberry.
Roddenberry said she's in it, and that's it.
Jody says the fun fact about this episode: it was loosely inspired by the real-life incident where the USS Pueblo was attacked by North Korean forces after being accused of sailing into its territory in January of 1968.
Why are you taking my fun facts, Jody? What's going on? I was like,
he's blocking you. He's scooping
your fun fact blocking me. That was going to be like my third fun fact, Jody.
No, he's taking them. So this aired in September of 1968. So that only happened 8 months before this. Interesting, though.
Imagine the North Koreans taking over an American ship.
The North Koreans getting the jump on the Americans.
Yeah,
Did they get the cloaking device?
if you go to North Korea as like a tourist today, you can go see that ship, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we stole this from America. It's ours now."
It's
Come
still
see-
there?
Yeah, oh yeah, they still have it. They put it on display. You can go see. You can go check it out.
The one time we got something 50 years ago.
He's defending his fun fact. He's standing behind it.
He's coming in. He's scooping the fun fact. You know what? You're welcome. You're co-host of Fun Facts with Jeff now. It's not.
Fun fact.
The crew was held for almost a year.
Well, good thing that didn't happen to the Enterprise crew. You look like the devil himself. Okay, and then everything starts kind of breaking down here because Kirk's like, "Hey, Scotty, go get me a uniform from one of those Romulan prisoners." By the way, did they ever return those Romulan prisoners?
It doesn't matter.
No, they didn't.
No.
Them and the commander were taken to dropped off at a Federation outpost.
Yeah. Okay. And one has no clothes. Kirk stole them.
But just a helmet.
Yeah, he only has the helmet.
Take his helmet.
Right. Because Kirk gets to wear the uniform here. No helmet though. He chooses because he's like, no, I was in makeup for these ears. You're not covering up my ears with a helmet.
No.
And but most of the other Romulans and a lot of Vulcans wear these helmets just so they don't have to put the makeup on them, or as much makeup on them, as we learned in other episodes. So as soon as Kirk beams over, he gets interrupted by another Romulan who's walking about. He's like, "What are you doing here? What's happening?" He's like, "Guess what? There's a spy on board." Kirk loves to do this. He's like, he's the infiltrator spy. He's like, "Guess what? There's a spy on board. There's an infiltrator." He does it like 3 times to these Romulans in like this short visit.
It's what I said to Dad before. Actors love acting within acting within acting.
Yeah, different layers of acting. Eventually, he gets to the cloaking device itself. We see there's a quick conversation with Kirk and Spock. Okay. So he's getting the cloaking device, a series of fights, and then they figure out, Commander. I'd be digress if I didn't mention that she had changed into something more.
Yeah. This by the way, this dress kind of like got the whole 60s hypnotic, like psychedelic look going on, but it's black and white too.
Yeah, it's quite the look.
It's Art Deco almost, you could say.
Yeah, it's very stylish. Romulan fashion, not bad compared to some of the other alien fashions.
And the quote there, I got to go make myself look like a woman.
A woman. Yeah, and this is another thing that bothers me sometimes too in Star Trek, where aliens call themselves men and women. Like last night, where even Vedic Bareil, Jeff, he's a, well, am I a man anymore? I'm like, you were never a man. You're a Bajoran.
What do you mean he was a Bajoran man?
But they're not actually speaking English. It's all translators.
Yeah, it's all translators.
Wouldn't it be male? Or I guess it's their word.
No, it would be their word for man. They would have a word for man, I'm sure.
Well, you could make it male, but it would make the show weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Yeah, if that's what Babylon 5 was, Dave. And that's why people weird, and that's why people didn't watch it.
This is not an invitation to take a shot at Babylon 5. Like it's
everything is an invitation to take a shot at Babylon 5 Day.
I took it as an open invitation, a highway. I was on the on-ramp and I said, blast it to 150.
Well, the use of woman and man by aliens is always...
Let's go back to Babylon 5. Dave likes Babylon 5?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, man, look at the poster right here.
Yeah, you need to come on D6 at 9-ish, Adam. It's an old running joke that Dave always brings up Babylon 5 on D6 at 9-ish.
Because I try to compare it. I'm like, this was another great space station show, and this is... D Space Nine does some things well, but other things Babylon 5 did better.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Subjective opinion.
We kind of leave it at that. We often tell Dave, if you want to talk about Babylon 5, you should do that at 5 o'clock.
When nobody's on the air.
One day we'll do a Babylon 5 rewatch.
You'll be alone.
I'll be alone. I don't know who's on that podcast with me. Right.
I'll be on that with you, but I'm not watching Babylon 5.
Jody is also saying on this Romulan commander, let's get back to that, where she was look like a woman. She is dressed respectfully, which shows how awesome the character is. Respect was shown in the costume choices.
I agree. I agree. Actually, I think
comparing Babylon 5 to DS9 is a completely logical thing.
No, there's a lot of similarities. Absolutely,
many. It doesn't deserve a slap. It deserves a slap on the back in commendation.
But when we're talking about DS9, it's kind of like, it's bringing up the elephant in the room when you're bringing up Babylon 5, and it's another time and a place, Dave. That's why I tell you, 5 o'clock is an open slot.
Babylon 5 at 5-ish.
But yeah,
it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
5 o'clock. It's an open slot to talk about whatever you want.
But it's fitting that on Cinco de Mayo you would bring up Babylon 5.
Yeah, exactly. Cinco de Mayo, Babylon 5, 5 at 5.
Don't encourage him, Dad.
so fitting, Dad. You got it. You put that together. Okay, so when they figure out the transmission is from her quarters after she changed into the dress, they come in and say there's an alien transmission. They figure, and Spock's like, it was me. And what's your most direct form of execution? I believe is what he asks, or your most current form of execution, which he later tells him is very painful and very lengthy. We don't get to find out what it is. But anyway, so he he goes on. He ends up stalling for time by asking for the right of statement through a good part of this, where he just stalls and stalls. He's, she uses the customs and whatever he knows about Romulans, he tries to work that angle as much as possible. Meanwhile, Kirk comes back to the ship with the cloaking device, and he goes, "Scotty, can you hook this up for me?" And he goes, "I don't know, sir." He's like, "Well,
Do it.
Our whole plan is contingent on this, so you better."
And you have 15 minutes max.
Yeah, get it done.
Yeah. He says, what does he actually say to Scotty here?
He literally says, "Get it done in 15 minutes. We don't have time."
Could not the Enterprise, without the cloaking device, outrun the Romulans? Couldn't they not done that?
It is strange, and it was only the one ship that was chasing them. It seems like the Enterprise could have made a run at any time.
But if they went up to warp 9, how the Romulans can go higher than that?
Or
because they caught up.
Yeah,
they
okay.
caught up. So.
That is the main point of this episode, because there's one point at the beginning of the episode where Kirk says there's 3 options. We can either fight, kind of do like then he says surrender, and there was one other one. It wasn't flee, and I was like, well, why don't you just flee?
Blow themselves up was the other one.
Oh, blow themselves up. Yeah, self-destruct was the other one. They don't even consider fleeing, which I found strange.
Yeah,
me too. But
yeah, I'm trying to see I'm just looking at the transcript to see what he says. He insults like Scott. He's like, your brilliant observation, Mr. Scott. Do you have any helpful opinions? That's what he asks him. He goes, we have we can fight and be destroyed. We can destroy the Enterprise ourselves and keep her from the Romulans, or we can surrender. And yeah, you're right, Jeff. Running is not discussed.
Captain, your ears. What happened?
Yeah, and then he comes to the bridge. Everyone's just happy he's alive. He's like, yeah, but let's keep going.
Yeah,
no time.
Chekhov's like, hey, what's your ears? What's going on? No idea.
No ears, sir. He's like, get it going.
By season 3, Kirk has died a few times. They should all, when he dies, be like, come on.
Yeah,
he's
going to show up as a Romulan or Klingon or something.
It's like a cat.
Yeah.
And then they get Spock back to end the end. But Spock beams they beam him over and they save the day. But why does the Romulan commander grab him and beam over with him?
I don't know. I also have the question: why does Spock spend the majority of this episode with his hands behind his back? Every scene, his hands are behind his back.
Tricorder. He didn't have a tricorder to hold.
He's playing hard to get. It's part of his move.
You're right. Pockets. He was holding that communicator the entire time.
He was keeping it up his sleeve. And so there's this kind of this tension here at the they beamed him over. That one thing I did gloss over was the fact that Romulan physiology, because he's like, come on, Chekhov, you can't find Spock over there. He's the only Vulcan over there. He's like, well, they read almost the same except for a slight difference, and then he finds it. Even though he's half human, which would make it even easier.
You would think,
but no. And then Chekhov locates Spock, and then she's over there. They get the cloaking device working just in time. They the shots from the Romulans miss, and then there's kind of the final send off between the Romulan commander and Spock in the turbo lift, because she's like, you can take me to your brig, and he's like, yeah, no, you guys can have like nice quarters. You can have a nice night. Well, you want to order whatever you want for dinner, no problem. They're just so happy they got this mission work. Yeah, you're a guest. You're a guest of honor. What do you think happened to her after this?
I think she's definitely interrogated.
Interrogated by the Federation?
Oh, yeah.
And do you think that do you think she got back to Romulus? Do you think she was got her career back?
I don't think that going back is an option for these guys. Something I learned in I don't think that the Empire is too forgiving to failure, and she failed.
Yeah, but imagine you capture like a North Korean person and then you sent them back to North Korea. I don't think it would go well for that person.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
Yeah, so-
there somewhere along the line they gave her they figured out her name was Liviana Tarvanek, and she was returned to Romulus and resumed her military career.
How do you know that?
I just have a feeling that's what it was. No, I just read that. I just read that. Her
Okay.
name was Liviana Tarvanek, and sometime after the events of this episode,
Fun fact.
Tarvanek was returned to Romulus and resumed her military career.
Okay. Well, on that note, let's go into the fun facts. We're at an hour here, and I do have to get to the Big Brother podcast. So, Jeff, you're up.
Alrighty, ready for some fun facts. It's a double F with Jeff. Okay, we're moving on to the fun
I
facts.
don't know.
Yeah, that's the song we need to make. Okay, the Romulan cloaking device prop was created using the Sargon globe from Return
There you go.
to Tomorrow and portions of the Nomad probe from the Changeling.
Yeah, there you go.
And that cloaking device, like that's used, like that look of that cloaking device is used in video games, Star Trek video games, like all
Yeah.
over the place. It's
Yep.
iconic.
Yep,
Look
Star Trek.
familiar.
Star Trek Elite Force, Dave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This was the last live action appearance of the Romulans in the Star Trek franchise until the Star Trek The Next Generation, The Neutral Zone in 1988, 20 years later.
Mark Alimo played from Deep Space Nine. Jeff played that Romulan.
I mean,
And-
that's pretty crazy. Like they literally put the Romulans down.
They put them on ice.
They
And
put
then
them
I
on
remember
ice.
Mark Alimo's line in that episode, he's like, "We're back."
As Cracker
Yeah.
would say, they put them in the bag.
Bag. They put the bag on the Romulan commander.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. First broadcast episode of the original series to feature the D7 Klingon battle cruisers. Although the episode Elon of Troyes was produced 3 months before this episode, and technically the first to feature the D7s, this episode was aired on television first, since NBC changed the airing order of all the episodes. For the remastered series in 2006, digital shots of the D7s were inserted into scenes in the episode Errand of Mercy, which now officially makes that episode to be the first to have the D7s, which, Dave, is why people hate when you say, well, this one was made first or this one was aired first, or it's all arbitrary.
I don't know
at
if it's
this point.
universally hated. I think a lot of fans out there like the fact that I'm championing canon, Jeff.
No, I checked. Nobody appreciates it.
I think the tag team couple is on my side on this one, and I don't know about Adam, but it seems
Most
like he-
others, I'm the only one who goes by production order, but that's okay.
Okay. The Romulans use Klingon disruptors pistols.
Well, they traded for technology. I think that's again more interesting. That like, hey, these two enemies of the Federation got together and had some
Or
trades.
an access of evil.
Yeah, an axis of evil.
Oh,
Right.
Right there.
Okay, so the Walter M. Jeffries designed Romulan symbol, composed of a yellow hexagon in the center with 3 colored spokes coming out of it, can be seen outside the commander's quarters above her door. This symbol never appears again in any Star Trek series or movie. I don't know if you have that symbol, Dave.
I do have it somewhere. There's a reason. Do you know why though? It's because it's kind of like the Klingon symbol that is on the D7 battle cruiser, right? I think that's maybe the reason why. Here, just gave me a second to upload it.
Okay, I'll read the next one and you pull that up. Okay, so in the opening segment, in regard to the enemy vessels, Spock declares, quote, Romulans now use Klingon design. End quote. There are several explanations / theories that have been advanced as to why Romulans use Klingon ships. The real reason is simply because the original Romulan model ship was gone non-union, independent creative design Hua Chang designed and built the original Romulan bird of prey model for Balance of Terror. He is also the creator of several iconic Star Trek costumes and props, including the Communicator, the original Phaser, the Salt Vampires, and the Tribbles, to name a few of his contributions to the show.
So if you use a non-union designer, it's just more expensive to reuse their designs. Is that what happens? Or
I guess, yeah.
you get paid like royalties and things like that. And Jeff, here's your Romulan symbol, which I think is just like them taking
Looks
the
like a
Klingon
couple of light
symbol.
bulbs screwed into a socket.
Yeah, it's a hexagon with like another gon around that.
Another gon.
Another gon. I don't know, like a tertiagon. I don't know what. It's not a hexagon.
Geometry and shape with Jeff.
Geometry and shape. Fun facts. I don't know. It's a hexagon, and then it's an septagon.
But the top part of the septagon is missing.
Yeah. See. Yeah. Yeah. See it, and then it's got. Then it has three different other something octagons of some sort. Okay.
I think it's a red light bulb and a white light bulb.
Okay. Okay. In the opening, sorry. After Balance of Terror, the model bird of prey was returned to Chang as per his contract, but he eventually disposed of it as he had limited storage and there was never any contractual obligations with CBS to retain it. However, either through poor planning or poor communication or both, season 3's Enterprise incident, production staff expecting to reuse the season 1 Romulan model learned from Chang that it was gone. The decision was made to modify the story to use only Klingon model ships, which were kept by the studio. Asking Chang to construct a new Romulan model ship would have been cost prohibitive. Economically, switching to Klingon vessels was the obvious solution.
There you go. That explains it.
Yeah. But it also kind of explains like how the Klingons ended up with cloaking devices too, right? And there's certain things about like that they had this trait.
They made them it seems like their alliance was based on budgetary constraints.
Yes, in real world.
Yeah, in real world.
Jack Donner, who played the Romulan sub-commander Tal, was one of 3 actors to appear in the original series and in Jody's favorite show, It's Been a Long Road Getting From There.
He was on Enterprise too?
Yeah, he was on Enterprise. The others are Joseph Ruskin and Clint Howard. Of course, Clint Howard.
Yeah, that's Dad's favorite, who he never remembers.
Yeah, the little guy.
Little guy, yeah.
Okay, Spock scans space out to 1/2 parsecs and says that there are no ships present. At the Enterprise, as the Enterprise enters the neutral zone, Romulan ships appear from nowhere. Later, Spock says that the Romulans must have invented a cloaking device, but they already knew the Romulans had one since they witnessed that in Balance of Terror, and their whole mission is to obtain the cloaking device. So they're kind of lying to their whole crew and being kind of dicks.
But the crew, a lot of that crew was there for that.
Yeah, they would have known that already. Yeah, that's a good point. One of the few episodes that opens with McCoy, making the medical log to open the show. So Dave already mentioned that, but I always like getting my word in too. Joanne Linville, Romulan commander, is given the name Dion Charvon in a 1977 Star Trek novel called The Price of the Phoenix by Mirna Culbreth and Sandra Marshak. In the 1999 novel Vulcan Heart by Josepha Sherman, her name is given as Levana Shervanek. It's not clear if either novel is canon, but Liviana Shervanek seems to have higher authority and credibility. In addition,
neither novel is canon.
In addition, Deanne Duane's 1984 novel, My Enemy, My Ally, states that the commander had her name stripped from her because of the events of this episode and introduces the commander's aunt, Ayel Tirilialiu.
This is all
That-
fan fiction, but it's great.
That is a complete fan fiction fun fact. Oh, that is a hard say that 10 times fast.
That's a tongue twister.
That's a tongue twister. In Balance of Terror, the Romulan ship only had a simple impulse engines. In this episode, the Romulan ship is capable of going faster than Warp 9, a major upgrade in capability for such a short time. That's a good point.
There you go.
Well, you gotta run. You gotta run.
Okay, we're almost there. One of the most famous lines from this episode is, quote, "There's no such thing as a Vulcan death grip," end quote. In Peter David's New Frontier series, Soletta, a Vulcan character, kills a Romulan guard with what she calls the Vulcan death grip. When another character says there's no such thing as a Vulcan death grip, Soletta glances at the body and then replies, "There is now." I like that. And we're
That was
almost
great. All right.
Well, we got one
You got
more. One more. Once again, Nomad from the Changeling has been repurposed to now be the Romulan cloaking device. Only the head is used. The 3 antennae have been modified slightly to put blinking lights around them. And that's it for
All
fun
right.
facts.
Let's get to the ratings. All right, bringing that in now, and let's bring this up in. We all get to chime in. Jody has sent in his vote ahead of time. If you can't tell, he's a big fan of this episode. Okay, so Dad, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm going to go high on this one, David. 9.5.
Wow. Okay, you said it was okay when I asked you at the top.
No, this is a good one.
All right, I'm going to give it the same. Jeff.
I'm gonna do 8.7.
Okay. Kevin.
I'll go 9.
9, and over to Adam.
9 as well.
Wow. So we are just making sure we have a full. Yeah, it's a full average.
Just so
we have an average.
we should all tell Jody that he rated this episode the lowest.
He's the lowest, so I guess he doesn't love this episode.
No, we love him more.
Yeah, we beat you, Jody. In love.
Look at the comment.
We all loved you.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, upgrade me to 10.5.
I want 11.
So yeah, as I was mentioning, both episodes, this week's episode and last week's episode, both written by DC Fontana. But Adam gave last week's episode a 2, and this one a 9. So hey, could go anywhere in between with DC Fontana.
I like Steve on normally. I just last
Just
week
not
was
when she's writing for Julie Newmar.
tragic.
Oh yeah, last week is the one where Bones smacks her. That's
Yeah.
his solution
That's
to
his thing.
everything.
That's his medical opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we got to pick up a new episode for the next one. The ones in yellow are available or need to be watched. So just
I think we should do a Land of Troyes.
where's that? Oh, okay, Elan of Troyes.
Because they mentioned that in this week's episode that there was something about the first time that the ships were.
Oh, that the D7 battle cruiser, which
Yeah.
which was filmed before this, actually is going to come afterwards, right?
Yeah. Might be a
So-
good segue.
I just want to see where does Alana of Troyes fall in terms of production number. It is okay. So Alana of Troyes is episode 2, even though I think in the whatever. And
Doesn't
no one's on my side for production number. It doesn't matter. I have so many people who
And
I
we're
don't
not-
know.
What season,
and we're-
Dave? Land
we're
of
not-
Troyes is what season?
We're not doing Spock's brain until the end.
Spock's brain is how we're going out.
That's the last one.
Brain. What is brain?
Dave, what year is Land of Troyes? 3?
Season 3, episode 2, if you go by production order, which I do.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what order it is otherwise. Like,
Yeah.
what some NBC executive decided that this should go in the order or this order or nonsense. So
Hogwash. I say.
hogwash, I say. All right. So that's wrapping it up for here on TED Trek Wednesdays. I am late for my next podcast in terms of watching things, so I do have to run. Thanks to Jeff and Kevin for coming in this week, and Adam, and to Dad for everything on the podcast. We're going to be back for Alon of Troyes next. We also do lots of other podcasts here on Star Trek Live Long and Podcast channel, which includes Tuesdays Deep Space Nine rewatches, as Jeff's alluded to many times. We're continuing our season 3 watch. And then we do Star Trek Radio Theater as well.
Just got to get the plug in there, Dave. You know, every now and then, Deep Space 99-ish Tuesdays.
Check it out. And Kevin, are we doing the next Radio Theater on Saturday? Is that when Ashley's off?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, the Raptors playing. What's happening, Jeff?
I don't know. I think they are playing, but I don't think it matters.
Yeah. Okay, got it. And then Star Trek Radio Theater, and then we also have our other channels, Trivial Debates, which is our monthly fight where we argue about movie, TV, sports, and more. Jody Simpson hosting the next one. He'll be saying, "What is brain?" probably during that hosting duty. And then we also have Super Mater Brothers podcasting, which we cover all kinds of shows that aren't Star Trek, including right now Big Brother Canada 9 final week. I got 2 podcasts left. Me and Jaemeel, we did them all. You didn't think we could do them, but we did them. I don't know who I'm saying that to. So we're coming through. We've done The Serpent. We've done Tiger King, different Netflix series. We've done what else? We do
Marvel
Survivor
stuff.
and Marvel MCU. I just did a 3-hour podcast with Jaemeel and Ashley on Saturday to talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So check out all that content on all our different channels. And let's sign off for tonight as we head into the distance, as we fly off away from these Romulans. Thanks everybody, and live long and podcast. We'll see you next time.
For all of us here.